In this twist tutorial, you'll learn how to fold the two-fold skinny mixed depth hexagon twists. Now that's a lot of descriptors, but basically what it means is you take an open hexagon twist and stretch it apart. So this twist is part of the Summer of Twist series, and it's actually the final video in the Summer of Twist series, where I'll be teaching you how to fold this twist without pre-creasing, so directly on a grid. Then we'll go over the crease pattern on the front and the back that you would see in the crease pattern for an origami tessellation, and then there will be a recommended video at the end for how to practice this twist in a repeating pattern folded from a single sheet of paper. So let's dive into the twist itself. In this tutorial, we're using a 12-fold triangle grid on a square. So if you're not familiar with this grid, definitely check out the instructions for folding it in the Summer of Twists welcome video. And I'm going to give fairly minimal drawing instructions for how to find this twist. I'm going to start with marking the center. And I'm actually going to rotate so that my edge parallel grid direction is horizontal and draw on a mountain extending on that horizontal grid line out to the right from the center. And I'm going to mark my valley fold 2 spaces away from that mountain. Next, I'm going to rotate so that the next grid direction is horizontal, so rotating clockwise, and 2 spaces away from the center in this grid direction, I'm going to draw a new mountain fold. So this is all that we really need to get started. I'm also going to add that I have a valley fold 1 spacing away from this mountain. This is the typical setup that we'll see in a tessellation as we're folding. We'll have some intersection between 2 pleats. In this case, I gave us a double wide and a single wide pleat. So I'm going to pick up my double wide pleat and my single wide pleat, and I'm letting both of those kind of float without extending too far past what I'm seeing right here. So I'm seeing how I can have that 2 in, 2 out relationship across that double depth plate, and a 1 in, 1 out for the single depth. I want to follow that, and I'm actually going to work around counterclockwise, the opposite direction that I usually work. So I've got this 2 in, 2 out, 1 in, 1 out. My next grid direction will also be 1 in, 1 out. And that tells me now where the next mountain must be. And that next pleat is going to be another double depth. This can be the same as the one in the opposite direction. And that's going to go 2 in, 2 out. I'm going to make sure as I fold this that my valley is 2 spaces away. Rotating around, I've got that 2 in, 2 out. This is showing me where my next mountain fold needs to be. It's going to be a 1 in, 1 out. And last but not least, my final mountain fold, making that 1 in, 1 out segment. Now I'm going to let my hexagon puff out so it's not keeping that 2 in, 2 out kind of cinched waist. I'm letting that expand out a bit. That's going to make my pleats much happier with laying down flat and less likely to move when I press from the top to squash this twist. So we only needed 2 pleats that were running into each other to set up this twist. That's generally true of all the twists. And we can see that these extensions of mountain folds into the center have been erased. What we have instead is new mountain folds all the way around our central polygon, which is kind of a pill-shaped, stretched out hexagon. And so I specified that this was the skinny two-fold mixed depth hexagon twist earlier. And that's because there is another possible form that is the same on opposite sides. Here we have 2 double depth pleats, but it's possible also to have 4 double depth pleats and 2 single depth pleats, and that can also be two-fold rotationally symmetric. By which I mean you always have the same thing on opposite sides. So this is the crease pattern that you'll see in a general tessellation crease pattern when you need to fold this two-fold skinny mixed depth hexagon. And one thing to notice about this, so if you want more landmarks than the 2 in, 2 out, 1 in, 1 out, 1 in, 1 out repeat, then you can see that the mountain folds for the mixed depth hexagons, if you project them into the middle, are 1 grid spacing apart. The mountain folds for that next direction are 4 grid spacings apart. And the mountain folds for the next direction, so these pleats, are 3 grid spacings apart. An interesting thing about this twist is that the exact center of the twist is not on a grid intersection. So it's really hard to start a tessellation on this twist if you want the pattern to be centered. But we can totally practice the twist without it being centered, so that's perfectly fine. Now let's take a look at the crease pattern on the back, because I can tell you that a lot of my designs that use this mixed depth hexagon use them on the back side of the paper from the perspective of the crease pattern. So it's important to be able to recognize both sides of the twist in a crease pattern, and also to recognize that when you're folding, you want to flip over, you want to flip your paper over to the side where the central polygon is outlined in mountains in order to fold and squash the twist. So this is what our crease pattern looks like if the twist is folded on the opposite side of the paper. And if you already have your off-grid lines folded, then you can certainly fold that up on this side. It's a matter of getting the pleats to all go where you want them to go. And oddly enough, we actually end up with this parallelogram hole instead of any kind of hexagon. So that's what's going on with this two-fold skinny mixed depth hexagon twist. And I should add their open hexagon twist because these edges are like an open hexagon. Now there is a closed version, but I tend not to use it because the pleats run into each other on the back. And that means that everything around it would need to be pre-creased in order to get everything laying flat as you're working on the pattern itself. So that's all for this tutorial. And for Summer of Twists as a series, I do invite you to check out that longer tutorial on how to fold this pattern in the context of an origami tessellation. And definitely go back and rewatch the videos in the Summer of Twist series. If there's any blind spots that you missed, things that you want to practice more, and check out the Advanced Twist Techniques and Tessellation Garden resources that have links in the description for more patterns using these twists. Happy folding, and I'll see you in the next video.